Dr. Angela McBrady of DoctorFlute.com, and today's flute tip is on, are you rushing? Here's how to fix it. This little passage that I played is a notorious place where everybody rushes. It's just a chromatic scale, slightly offset, but it is always rushed. And when I talk about rushing here, it's applied to every place where you're rushing. And we all have our solos where there's fast passages, and we've been rushing through them, because when you play it with the piano, you really find out that the piano didn't get there at the same time that you did, and you should land on the last note together, and you found that you were rushing, or you have to hold the last note just a little bit for the piano to catch up. That's because your fingers are rushing. Now, there's many ways to fix that. Here's what I like to do. The first thing I want to do is turn on my metronome. I'm not going to turn it on right now, but I'm going to use the metronome. Your metronome is your best friend when it comes to rushing. It is going to hold that beat for you and make sure that you're not thinking that you're steady when you really aren't. There's very few of us that have such an internal beat that you can keep that beat steady no matter what your fingers are doing. Generally, we change the beat to fit the fingers. So that's the first thing you're going to do. Choose a tempo that you can play this perfectly without rushing. If you can play it perfectly without rushing at a certain tempo, that's where you start. That isn't where you say, well, I can do it now, let me move to something a little faster. Start with that, okay? Now, the next thing that you can do, and the order of this, I'm not sure is so important as just do these different things, is let's change the rhythm up a little bit. Because rushing only means that all our finger muscles are not moving at the same time. Okay, we definitely have fingers that the muscles are really responsive, and other ones where the muscles are not as responsive. And so when we work on a passage, what we're really doing is making all those muscles work the same. We need to make them all be even and work the same and be at our command rather than them doing their own thing, which is what's happening when they're rushing. So I want to pick a tempo that I know I can play this at. Next, I like to tongue. I like to start off with tonguing everything. So I'm going to slow this up, this little chromatic passage at 31 on Fauré's Fantasy. And I'm going to tongue everything. I think I will single tongue it. And I'm going to go to the next note. It's so much more satisfying than if I just stopped and went and then started back. Go to your last note and feel like you have accomplished something. It's so much more satisfying to work. Okay, I'm going to do that a couple times, and I'm going to do it with my metronome so that I stay with that tempo and I feel exactly under control. My fingers are working. Next, I might change the articulation up. So now, slur 3, tongue 1. If I do that a couple times in a row, what happens is that my eyes see different things than they saw the first time. When I look at that and see it's a chromatic scale, yes, it's offset a little bit, and I have to make sure where those cuts are and go back to that note, but our eyes don't see all those notes. When you articulate differently, you make your fingers and your eyes and your fingers see something they didn't know before, and there you learn it better and you learn it stronger. So I would go through all those Taffanel and Gobert articulations at that tempo that I know I can play it at. Okay. Now, besides doing all those articulations, which I have talked about in the past for learning really tricky 16th note passages or any type of fast passages, to use those Taffanel and Gobert articulations and start at a slow tempo. But while I'm still doing this slow tempo, I might change the rhythm. So instead of doing I might do a triplet and an eighth. Okay, or I'm going to change that and do the opposite. What can be really fun too, and is a strong way to learn, is once you get to the top, go back down. If you haven't done it before, it gets a little bit tricky the first time because you don't see the accidentals ahead of time. So you might have to do it a couple times like, oh yes, right, I have to check out that that's an A sharp or that's an F sharp before you get there, because you're seeing it now. You're seeing the note and you don't know that it's already been sharped in the measure. Okay, that's what I mean. Now, I'm going to change it like that. Now I can also do any number of ways of changing the rhythm. Always, always, always with a metronome. And that time I remembered my accidentals since I already did it down once. But I changed the articulation. I went up and I went down. There are many different ways, but change it up. A really fun way, but can be annoyingly difficult, is to make it all be triplets. Because now I've got to break up my groups of 4 and really look at it, because I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and so on and so forth. So I'll show you. And there are a couple of places where you have to double the notes because there's 2 D's in a row or there's 2 B's in a row, and that throws it off. But give it all triplets. It's annoying and fun at the same time. But again, it's a strong way to practice. It's going to make you look at those notes and see things that you didn't see before. When I was doing Chantelinos by Jolivet, I remember working on some of these really difficult passages and just runs that don't fit into your fingers. They aren't scalar necessarily. There's just different skips that maybe you're not used to playing. And changing the rhythm up, changing the articulation up. And I remember thinking, I don't even remember seeing that note there before. I never saw that note. And by doing that, now my fingers, my head, it's been acknowledged. I know it's there. So after you've been doing it with that tempo, make your metronome go a little bit faster. It's a slow way of getting your work and getting your passage learned, but it's the strongest way I know to get even, strong passages without rushing. And as I always say, slow gets you faster, faster. That's my motto. And it works. It works every single time. There's not a single time where this method doesn't work. So check out your passages. See where you're rushing. Take it out, put your metronome on, use different articulations and different rhythms, but always make sure you're at a tempo that you can achieve this on. And then move it a little bit faster. Do not start at the tempo you want to end at. Start at something much, much slower than that. Have fun working on your passages where you're rushing and get them to not rush. That's today's flute tip. If you like today's flute tip, press the like button, subscribe, comment below, and share it with your friends.